The first thing you notice is not the fire, it is the columns, row after row, stretching into the darkness, precise and deliberate, carved from stone that seems to absorb light and return it as heat. The arches above them are Roman, the proportions are imperial, the scale is inhuman in the most literal sense, not because it is grotesque, but because no human hand could have raised it alone, and yet someone did. Below the palace, the ground is not ground, it is molten. A sea of liquid fire churns beneath the foundations, slow and permanent, like something that Earth has been doing for so long it no longer notices. Above, the sky is in permanent convulsion, smoke, red lightning, the suggestion of a storm that will never clear and was never meant to. In the foreground, standing on a jagged rock above the lava, there is a single figure, spear in hand, shield raised, back turned toward us. He is looking at what he built. He does not look destroyed. He looks like a founder on the day of completion. This is John Martin's Pandemonium, painted in 1841, and the painting is not doing what you think it is doing. Most people, when they see it, read it as spectacle, biblical, epic, a visual translation of Milton's Paradise Lost, where the fallen angels construct a capital from which to continue their war against heaven, a painting about damnation, a painting about Satan. But Martin was too precise a thinker to paint only what he was supposed to paint. Look at the architecture again. Those columns do not belong to mythology, they belong to Rome, to Athens, to the Houses of Parliament, which were being rebuilt in London at almost the exact moment Martin completed this canvas. The proportions, the grandeur, the engineered confidence of the structure, they are the proportions of every civilization that has ever decided its buildings should outlast its people. Martin did not paint hell to look different from civilization. He painted it to look identical. That is the idea hidden at the center of this image. And once it becomes visible, the painting stops being historical and starts being something else entirely. John Martin came of age during the Industrial Revolution, when England was remaking itself at a speed that felt both miraculous and deeply wrong. Factories replaced fields, iron replaced wood, cities grew upward and outward, consuming everything around them with the logic of systems that had stopped needing permission. The men who built these things believed they were ascending. They believed progress and virtue moved in the same direction. Martin kept painting the alternative. His canvases are full of collapsing cities, divine judgment, tiny human figures swallowed by architecture and storm. He was not a pessimist exactly. He was something more specific, a man who understood that the same impulse that raises civilizations also digs their foundations over fire. He had read Milton deeply, obsessively, returning to Paradise Lost across decades, and what he found in Milton's Satan was not a monster. He found a recognizable psychological type, the brilliant figure who cannot accept loss, the visionary who responds to defeat not with grief, but with construction. Look at the figure in the foreground. Martin makes a precise and deliberate choice. Satan's back is toward us. We cannot see his face clearly. We see his posture, commanding, upright, the raised arm gesturing toward the city. But we do not see what his expression holds. That absence is not accidental. It is an invitation, because without a face, the figure becomes a type rather than a character. He becomes every founder who ever stood at the edge of something they had built and felt in that moment, as though the building proved something, as though the scale of the structure could retroactively justify the scale of the loss that preceded it. Satan has lost heaven, not just power, not just status. He has lost the only world he had ever known, the only identity he had ever held. And his response, the very first thing he does, is to commission an architect. There is a name for this in psychology. The wound is real, the grief is real, but instead of moving through it, it gets converted, solidified, given columns and arches and a foundation of engineered stone. The pain becomes a palace, the absence becomes a capital city, and what looks from the outside like triumph is, from the inside, still just the original loss, now made permanent, made visible, made magnificent enough that no one will ever ask what it replaced. Pride made permanent, a wound converted to stone. Martin understood this intimately. His brother Jonathan, consumed by religious obsession, convinced of a divine mission, set fire to York Minster in 1829. The act was not chaos. It was, to Jonathan, a statement, a construction of meaning over an abyss of inner collapse. John lived in that shadow, and it may be why his Satan is not a cartoon villain. It is something quieter and more uncomfortable, someone who builds because he cannot bear to feel what he has lost. But now look at what the building does to its builder. Satan is dwarfed by Pandemonium. He stands in the foreground, powerful in isolation, and the palace behind him reduces him to a silhouette. He has built something that no longer needs him. The architecture has outgrown its architect. The system has exceeded its founder. This is one of the most quietly modern observations in the entire painting. The greatest achievements of organized power are always the same: to make themselves necessary, to grow beyond the individual who conceived them, to persist after the original intention has been forgotten, after the founder has become irrelevant, after the structure has developed its own momentum, its own logic, its own gravity. Satan is not the ruler of Pandemonium. He is its first resident. He built a prison and called it a capital, and now he stands before it, brilliant, isolated, and ultimately irrelevant to the machinery he set in motion. The painting allows a reading where this is the real punishment, not fire, not pain. The punishment is to have built something extraordinary and to be slowly, silently made smaller by it. Now look further back, into the distance, behind Satan, beyond the lava, filling the base of the palace and the edges of the frame. There are thousands of figures. They are almost invisible. Martin gives them no individuality, no faces, no names. They are present in the painting the way workers are present in civilizations, structurally essential and personally irrelevant. They are what the palace required in order to exist, and what the palace once built no longer acknowledges. These are the real citizens of Pandemonium, not the founder with the spear, not the commanding silhouette on the rock, the ones who are simply there, absorbed into the scale of the system, made anonymous by the grandeur of what they sustain. Martin painted this in 1841, and the figures in that background could be anyone. They could be the laborers who built the Roman Colosseum, whose names do not appear in any historical record, whose lives were consumed by a structure that was designed to outlast them. They could be the factory workers of Martin's own England, the men, women, and children who fed the Industrial Revolution and were ground smooth by it, while the cities above them rose higher and were called progress. They could be the people inside the large, orderly, magnificently functioning systems of today. The ones who keep the institution running, whose labor is captured and organized and directed by structures so vast they no longer need to be unjust to be diminishing. They simply need to be large. Hell, in this painting, does not punish through torture. It punishes through scale, by making people small enough that their smallness feels natural. And this is where the title becomes less metaphorical and more exact. Why hell looks like civilization. Because both can be defined by the same architecture of feeling, the sense that the system around you is magnificent, necessary, and indifferent to your existence, that the grandeur is real and the grandeur is not for you, that the columns are beautiful and the columns are not yours, that the fire beneath the foundations has been there so long that questioning it feels unreasonable. Martin painted this with the careful hand of someone who had watched England build its version of Pandemonium in real time. The railways, the factories, the imperial ambitions, the monumental public works, and recognized in all of it the same psychological structure as the infernal palace: order without conscience, beauty built over a sea of fire, magnificence as a form of captivity. The painting you were first drawn to for its spectacle has become something else. The columns that looked like power now look like enclosure. The glow that seemed seductive now seems to be what it always was. Not illumination, but burning. The founder surveying his creation is not triumphant. He is the first proof that the system works, that even the person who imagined it is now contained within it, dwarfed by it, defined by it. Martin does not ask you to recoil from this painting. He asks you to notice that you were drawn to it, that the palace looked for a moment like something worth building, that the scale felt briefly like proof of something admirable. That impulse, the desire to find grandeur beautiful before asking what it cost, is not a flaw in your character. It is something Martin considered deeply human and deeply dangerous, because the most complete form of pandemonium is not the one built in hell. It is the one built here, above ground, out of the same materials, with the same ambition, by people who were certain they were ascending, and who never once looked down at what the foundations were resting on.